We're going to get started now. Welcome to Defensive Security Club. Fill out the attendance link if you haven't done so yet. That'll let us push out VAPs to you next week. All right, so the VAP for today is DefSec_PfSense. I think Nick posted this in the DefSec channel. Pull it down if you don't have it. It should get pushed out to you if you were here last week. If not, pull it down, power it on so that you have it ready to go for the lab. Our advanced Linux sessions are still going. Thursday, 6 p.m. in EH100, 101, sorry, in the basement. We're going to cover web application firewalls with mod security. So basically setting up a piece of software so that you can block basic vulnerabilities in web servers, like SQL injection and command injection, things like that. That should be a lot of fun. Mock 2 is on October 21st. We're starting signups for that today. You can be on the red team or the blue team. The sign up form is the same, so if you want to sign up for red team today, you can do that.
Wait, what's the mock competition?
October 21st. New thing we're doing this time is that you can pair up with a friend and be on the same team with them. So when you sign up, you'll be asked, like, what's your partner's email address? And then if you two pick each other, we'll try to keep you on the same team. If there's anything weird, we'll try to email you guys to figure things out if things get weird. Yeah, just make sure you both put each other's email address in there so that we can pair you up properly. And then teams will be randomly picked and sort of balanced out like that, like we did last time. So fill out that link. Do you want to post that in DefSec if you could? Are there any questions about the second mock? Anything you guys want to ask? Right. If not, then we're going to go to Mike with Injects.
He put that mock sign up and edited it in. I uploaded, by the way, all my stuff. Okay, I'm not going to sit there. Okay, cool. So I'm Mike Grippo. Today I'm going to talk about CCDC injects. So about me, I've been doing inject handling, I think, for 2 years of competitions now, both regional and national. Before that, I was a Linux guy for a year doing some basic stuff, not the best, but it's kind of why I switched over to inject handling a little bit, and because no one really wanted to do it, so I just kind of fell into that role because Mike's versatile and I'll do whatever. So what is an inject handler, actually? It's usually a dedicated person, or it should be split up amongst other people where they actually handle all the business injects that happen during a competition. I'm speaking directly from experience with CCDC. I don't know how they do it at other cyber competitions or anything like that. But I know with this, you have to have good time management, organization skills. You got to be professional, at least in your writing. You got to be good at writing at least, or somewhat able to pass by like you look like you know what you're doing. Basic understanding some IT and security concepts, and then also be able to communicate with your team effectively to explain things and go about your day-to-day business and how that you do injects. So what are injects exactly? Make sure it's up there. Injects, right, are business IT tasks that any other IT department would have to do or deal with, or security team would have to deal with, being part of a corporation. This includes 4 basic things: our reports, presentations, activities, and also support. I'm going to go through all 4 of those in deeper as we go. Here's some goals, though, involved with being an inject handler. The goals mainly are to communicate effectively, meet the business needs and functionality that your company needs or wants, and then always keep your CEO happy, or whoever's your boss, keep them happy. That's the biggest thing. So talking about reports. Reports are, they're required for most of the injects I've seen so far. There's always a report required. It consists of, writing on a specific topic or writing policy or anything that's about that certain topic. Usually there's a problem or an issue that has prompted that. And you got to detail company policy effectively so that it's already recorded and on the books. Many people have things like password policy already, authorized use policy, and sometimes you go into an environment and they don't have that. That's one of the first things they might ask you is like, we want a new policy on this, or we want, have something written out on this, or there's this issue, how do we solve it? Most of the time it's going to require a report, or usually they ask for some sort of deliverable. Some tips I always find is, don't always use the big technical jargon you might want to, right? Like, this isn't some essay you're trying to impress your English professor with. These are normal people that may not understand, big concepts, so maybe stay a little high level. If it's for maybe the CIO or someone down under, maybe they want to see more specifics. And I would say, right, use more simple terms. Don't overcomplicate things. Explain everything. Sometimes having diagrams in there are really good. Helps show that you know what you're doing, and look professional. So I'm not sure if everyone can see that, but this is an example of an inject that required a report actually, right? So the CIO explains that. I heard about this new issue or this new topic, and I was wondering if we're affected by it. What exactly is it? Can you run through and see like if our systems are affected, or how do we tell if we're affected, and how would we solve the solution if we are infected? And it comes like some email format. Sometimes it comes in just like a Word doc you'll get, whatever their communication system is that they're using at the time. So the first things I like to do is break it down by who, what, where, and when. For this situation, right, who is it? It says CEO, but it should say CIO. What? It's a report. Three basic things within this report are explain meltdown, explain the tool to scan it, and then explain the solution to patch it. Where? It's electronic deliverable most likely. In this situation it was. And then when, it said it was due at 5:45. The reason why I put the when in there is because as an inject handler, you got to make sure you stay on top of when things are due, because no one else probably will at the end of the day. So let's actually break it down. Step one. Step one, whenever I'm doing an inject, is I usually write up a memo. The memo is, the pre-document that tells them, hey, this is me turning in the inject. This is what's attached. This is who it's going to, what inject number this is. It's important because you want to make sure you have all your documentation organized in a way that you can easily access it and easy for the white team or orange team, wherever, to grade it and respond to it if they have issues. Right, so you want to address the audience or the receiver. You're going to want to keep it short and simple. I keep a couple sentences just explaining, hey, this is what we're doing. This is the document. If you have any questions, let us know. Here's our contact info. And then also put the inject number in there, or else they won't be able to grade it. So this is the memo template we've always been using. If you notice, it has to, from, date, the subject. And it's more formal towards the bottom where we actually say, hello, CEO or CIO. Attached is this, address the topic, conclusion, put your contact info. So actually, I want you guys, if you can, in the DefSec Slack group, I posted a link to Google Drive. I want you to take that memo template, and I want you to make it work for the Spectre problem that I showed you guys, the inject. And I'll post that in there. So if we can draft, I'm gonna give you guys like a couple minutes just to draft a memo based on this. And then if you look at the link I actually put the templates that we've been using in DefSec in that same folder. It's called Memo template. Are people able to access the templates and everything fine? I just kind of threw them in a folder and hoped everyone could download from there. Cool. Well, hopefully that was enough time at least for you guys to start. Shouldn't be too long for a little memo. So this is what I did when I drafted it up for the competition, I believe. I said, address him as like Jason Barker, acting CIO, kept his title in there. I, made it look nice. I was like, as requested, in Inject 1, the IT team has drafted a report addressing the topic of meltdown. Please don't hesitate to contact us with any concerns or issues. And then at the bottom says, attach this memo as a requested report. And then, I think I put Team 5 for us. I don't know if that's what our team was. And then actually up above, you see where it says like company name and logo. I actually make the memo template. I bring it in on paper. I recreate it in Word. And then usually they give us documents electronically, so I can just pull like the company's logo and the name. I just plop it right in the top right corner there. It makes it look nice and professional, like it's a actual company document or memo. So once you have a memo that kind of looks like that, we actually start talking about writing the report. One of the first things, though, is you need to understand sources and information. We can't just steal anything on the internet and copy and paste it and be like, yep, that's our report on the topic. We're all good there. We can't just take information from any website, right? You can't just take things from like HuffingtonPost.com or CNN or Fox News and be like, yep, this is how we do security now, is just pasting it from like news websites. We actually have to use proper sources. Good sources are white papers by security researchers and institutions, universities, manufacturer and developer websites. So MSDN.com, Intel.com, right? Like those sources directly by the developers and the manufacturers are good sources. SANS Institute is, I think they're technically like an accredited university, but they provide templates and information and example policies on different security concepts, and we used a lot of that actually during the competition, is pulling from there, rewording it for ourselves in our own words. Government provides actually a lot of stuff. NIST is a big one. NIST is very much, if you're trying to get into policy and inject stuff and you want to know what you're talking about and like this policy response to like this certain topic, NIST is a big one to look at. They identify everything already out there for every policy known to man, essentially. If you want to read a lot and go through it, you can. CERT, that's through DHS. That's their Computer Emergency Response Team. They respond to different scenarios and problems and provide solutions as well, or links to solutions. DHS does that on top of that through them. So as you're writing the report, right now you've got information. How are you going to write this report to make it look professional for them? Usually I follow a template or a guide, or we create one ahead of time. I brought it on paper. Big things is, you want to stay consistent. You want to make it easy to use and not too complicated to the fact that you can't read it or someone else can't read it. You got to look professional, like stated before. Here's just an example template that we use a lot, where we have in the header like our team number, the date, the inject number attached to it, proper titling, and breaking down where we actually we always usually have an overview, conclusion, and the sources as well as where we link. And talking about with that type of report template, here's a policy template that we drafted up for a year or so now we've been using. Same style, except you notice with policy, right? You want to make sure you have like a purpose and a scope within there, and actual policy numbers and proper formatting for that, so anyone can, we can reference a policy number really easily, right? By going like 1.2.2 in the policy handbook for, passwords is you have to have a minimum of like 8 characters, right? You want to be able to ease of use like that, make it easy for anyone to reference. There's it zoomed in a little more so you can see. So actually, you guys should all group up or do it by yourselves and actually make the report now if you can. And I'll show you what I have. So to be clear, we're doing a report on meltdown, meeting the requirements specified here. I can't see that, but it's in Slack. Let's write a report on that. It shouldn't be more than like a page and a half. I would follow the template I already put in the Slack or in the Google Drive. Should look something like this. This is what I provided. So I think I gave you guys, hopefully, at least enough time to get started on that. I guess I could show you mine right now. Give you an idea of what I did. Right, so I followed the same format from before. Overview, everything. You know, I kept the inject numbers, dates, team number, all that good. Right, in my overview, I just explained, like, as we advance in computing, we need to make sure we stay on top of security issues, you know, blah, 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 blah. Stuff CEOs love to see and eat up. Right, security is a big priority. With this report, we need to talk about the security topic of meltdown, and then go on to explain what meltdown is in my own words, like not just copying and pasting from somewhere. You know, I actually quote like some sources where I'm like, yep, even NIST and like DHS has issued stuff on this, shows the severity of the problem. They asked how to detect it, right? You go into actually like what we did for it. Typically, if it's to the CEO, they're not always asking to see like specifically like how to solve a problem in terms of like commands and stuff. But if it's a report specifically asks like show what you're doing for it, in this case I'm showing the commands I ran. In the case of us actually doing this in the competition, asked to see it for every machine. In that case, you'd format screenshots appropriately that showed you ran the command showing, hey, like these amount of systems are affected, these ones aren't. I don't have systems here to do that with, but it's definitely something you need to keep in mind though, is showing proof. You know, going how to patching it, explain how we can utilize our environment for us with Windows AD and SCCM to push out like an actual software update. Typically, there's a conclusion. This one's kind of short. Just explain, yep, security is important, meltdown's a problem. Let's fix it. And I also put my sources in there. You know, US.gov, Intel.com. Meltdown attacks actually the white paper by the researchers from Meltdown. So that's how my report came out. Does anyone actually have a memo or a report like kind of done they want to post in Slack so we can look at it and talk about it? Yeah, that's what I kind of figured. No one wants to write reports. That's why injects are boring. You know, no one wants to sit there and actually write like a policy from scratch or even build one from a template.
But they're important. This is half of the story of original CCD.
It's very true, right? We'll get to that, you know, a couple more slides down where I explain like it's very important, injects. All right, so I showed you my report already outside of that. So then there's, besides reports, there's presentations, right? Just like reports, except you're actually, you know, talking about out loud and actually possibly showing a PowerPoint. Usually you need a handout with it. But this isn't usually done by the Inject Handler unless I think if the team captain can't step in to do it. Typically the team captain's the person that's interfacing between the team and the CEO, the CIO, the orange team, the white team, stuff like that, at least for inject-related reasons. So have a good team captain that can talk and stuff like that, or have an inject handler that, if need be, steps in, can actually explain and talk in person, not, you know, stutter and get, you know, upset and everything. Typically, this consists of PDF slide decks. Like I explained, handouts are always good. My understanding, they love seeing if they have a handout so they can actually read through it, show that you tried in this inject. It's going to require you to talk to many people if you're the one presenting. You have to be able to answer questions. Typically, as an inject handler, sometimes we'll prepare, you know, questions, answers ahead of time so that the team captain can talk to the CEO effectively and answer questions just in case. Or, you know, the inject handler and the team captain will sit down and go about the topic and they'll go through the report so they understand it from scratch and it doesn't just look like he was handed it and told to present it. Presentations, right? You got to talk well, get in a stressful environment. One of the other things is you might be asked, at least if, you know, the team captain or the inject handler in a situation you have to present, is, you know, what's the actual status of like the competition right now? Like, how's your environment? You know, what's the machines looking like right now? The network, how the status of it, and injects. CEO's going to ask like, are you guys on top of everything right now, or are you keeping track and like securing everything? What's the status? Like, why is this down? Why is this up? And that's usually the responsibility of the team captain. I put in the inject spot a little bit so that, you know, the inject handler can help prepare the team captain for that, or has to write up a report on it. But it's good knowledge to have. One of the biggest things is if you're presenting, prepare the right answer questions, and then be confident, but also be honest. Don't lie to them. Be like, oh, yep, all of our services are fine, right? Like, it's okay if they're down right now. We'll get them back up immediately. Be honest. Be like, yep, we're having issues right now. We're trying to solve them. These are the steps we're following. Have time and patience. So we did reports and we did presentations. So activities. I put this category as activities because this is just mundane tasks that need to be done that don't always require a report or a presentation. These are performed not just by the Inject Handler or team captain, but by everyone. These consist of, business requests as in, oh, we have a new user now. We need to add them to Windows environment and AD. We also need to add them to, all the other machines too, Linux. We want them to be a, admin level person, or, we need to install new software or hardware, right? Like, here's a server, install it, put the service on there, or put up a new service. Sometimes it's start up an FTP and make users for it, have it up for a certain amount of hours, and then take it down at a certain time. Mundane business IT tasks like that. So tips for that, right? You need to be able to work with your team. Right, as an Inject Handler, I might not know how to work in Windows AD environment natively, or I don't have access to it. So maybe I'll go talk to my, my domain controller guy, or I talk to a Windows guy. Linux, it's the same way. If I don't know Linux and I can't go in there and do it myself, or I don't want to go in there and disturb them, I tell them, like, hey, can we get this done at some point? It's due at this time. You got to be able to periodically check up on them, too. Sometimes people forget, especially in the heat of competition, you just forget. I know I forget. Biggest thing is just identify who needs to do this. Talk to them, check up on them, communicate, and keep up with time. That's the biggest thing. And the fourth one is the support role. With support, it is, I think, fairly new, actually, where the Orange team or the operations team comes in and actually acts as like a business customer or business employee. Right, this is usually done by everyone. Usually you have to answer the phone and answer questions from Orange team. They're asking, sometimes it could be a stupid question like, my password isn't working, can you help me out? Or what is this information, or what's our policy on this, right? So you need to be able to answer questions over the phone, answer the phone. Sometimes they'll come in and actually grade an inject where, you might have had an inject to make a new user. They'll come in between like a 2-hour period. Orange team will come in and like have to actually log in as a user. So you have to give them the time and the availability to do that. So that's both the support and then also a regular activities inject right there being scored. One of the biggest things with that is, I would say, have someone designated who knows how to answer the phone. I know from previous years, almost everyone on our team can answer a phone very effectively. Talk with them. Sometimes we don't have an answer, so we got to keep them going a little bit until we can get an answer out there from someone on the team. So got to kind of occupy their time a little bit. I think we've joked around a little bit every now and then with the phones, like, oh, how's your day going, and so far like that, acting like it's a real business. One of the biggest things you do need to do, though, is, if they're coming in person, ask for an ID or a badge, make sure they are who they are, not red team coming in trying to get access to a system. You don't just hand out passwords to people, right? You can't do that even over the phone or in person. You always got to authenticate who they are. Sometimes we have, I think, a policy in place where you have to provide a certain code or digit or something to change your password or call in and get information. So you need to keep that in the back of your minds, like they might not be who they're saying they are. Make sure they have an ID or something to support it. And always be kind and helpful. That's the biggest thing, is they might also grade you on how you are being as a team as a whole, treating people. So yeah, that's the 4 biggest concepts with injects. And I know they're really boring, but they get you points, and that's the biggest thing, is they're about half the CCDC points. So I think we'll have the next competition again, I'm guessing. So I'm curious how everyone felt about injects during the first mock.
We had injects during the first mock.
Yeah.
We did.
I was not aware.
I heard from one person they were kind of overwhelming for never doing them before. I could say that's how I felt like the first time doing an inject, having to get them done.
Once you start, like when you go in with absolutely no templates, then it's kind of like terrifying. But once you get templates and you start reusing them after a while, it's like
Yeah, so
you save time.
you regurgitate the same thing over and over again. Like the password policy, like I know what to grab now from NIST and from SANS immediately. You'll get to that point, if you continue to do it. If you practice, actually. That's why my biggest thing is prepare templates ahead of time so you have them. You can bring them in on paper. I think we brought in a decent amount during nationals. Even though we didn't use all of them, we saw a lot of new injects. I think we will provide for you guys, if you want to look at different types of injects. We have a repository for all the injects from 2016, 17, 18, I think. If you want to take a look at those from national and regionals, whichever one we attended, I think we have most of those available. So if you have any questions, let me know about Injects. If you're interested in being an Inject person, let me know.
So how much time do you have to work on these injects? Like,
There's always a time limit usually. Sometimes it'll be, we want it ASAP, which means like we'll check it eventually, but I've never seen anything where we get the first email, it's like we need to immediately get this done. They check it in like the first half hour. I'd say maybe the first hour when you have an immediate inject like that. Usually there's a time limit or time set where it's like, yeah, 5:45, we need to have this inject done, turned in. There's other ones where they just don't have a time limit at all. It's like add users. And the only time that there's a time limit is when Orange Team comes up and grades it, right? They're coming in like, hey, we need to log in as these users. You're getting graded there. So if you didn't do it by then, you're not going to get the points. So there's always some sort of time limit. That's one of the biggest things is keeping track of time. And one of the other things I'll stress is just because the time passed doesn't mean you can't turn in the inject. You might lose half points or quarter points or a lot of points, but some points are better than no points, that's for sure. Any other questions? Cool. Beat me to it.
why is there a blue Yeti on this?
It's a microphone. Talk to the.
I'm sure everyone watching the stream really enjoyed that.
Wait. As Krebsbach would say, "Good morning, distance students. How are we doing today?" He'll do that at the end of the class to be like, "Goodbye, distance students."
Once I gotta switch the mirroring. Okay, so for the rest of the time, we're gonna talk about PfSense. So what is PfSense? It's an open source network firewall. So the same thing as your Palo Altos, Junipers, all those, but open source, based on FreeBSD with custom kernel. The base install includes most of the features, and you can install additional ones on top of that. They offer a wide variety of packages, and if you want to download the ISO for it, it's free at pfsense.org. Right now, it is deployed to you in the environment, the defsec_pfsense vapp. This is the test environment, so we have our PfSense firewall here with 3 networks, 2 external and 1 internal, running a variety of services. So first off, we'll just dive into the console here. So if you open up your PfSense, it's pretty simple, self-explanatory here. You can do the basic configurations, and most of it's done in the GUI. But the first thing we have to do is configure our interfaces, since this is a fresh install of PfSense. So we're going to take, there's 4 ports on the box, and then we'll just assign them. So to do that, we're going to go option 1. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more. To assign your interfaces. Right now we're not going to worry about VLANs. You can do that if you want to, but most of the time in our competitions we won't. For the WAN port, we don't actually have one. So EM3 is going to be what we use. For our LAN port, it's going to be EM0. That's going to be our internal. Optional 1 is going to be EM1, which is external 1. And then optional 2 is EM2 for external 2. And yes, we want to proceed. It takes a minute, but we'll get there.
We hit Control C and it seemed to work.
That's it.
I don't know if that actually worked. Yeah.
Okay. So if you are stuck, next I could press Control C and then it should exit that. So now you can see here we have all our interfaces assigned to the EMs and what they are in terms of the ports on the physical box. So the next step is going to be configuring our interface IPs, which are going to be on the different networks, your default gateway, router, and how you access it. So first we're going to configure the internal one. So we're going to do number 2 to set your interface IP address. We're going to select number 2 for your LAN. And we'll use 192.168.0.1 and a bit count of 24. For these, you just keep clicking enter for none. We don't want the DHCP server at this time, and just no again there. So now we can access the PfSense console on that IP address on that interface. So we're gonna go ahead and do the other ones as well. So for external one, we're gonna do 10.0.0.1 with 26. The same as before, we're not gonna worry about DHCP or IPv6. And the last one, 172.0.0.1 with 24. Any questions on interfaces? Cool. So you can also SSH to PfSense. Good rule of thumb, if you don't need it, make sure it's disabled. So in our case, we're gonna make sure it is disabled because we're not gonna use it. So that's option 14. And here it says it's currently disabled. Would you like to enable? We're gonna say no. If it was enabled, it would say SSH is currently enabled. Would you like to disable? And so you would disable it that way. So then we'll open up the web console. So to do this, open up your internal Win10 and log in with the typical password one bang. If you open up Firefox and navigate to 192.168.0.1, you'll get the certificate error go ahead and click accept anyways. And then you'll be on the login screen. So the default username is admin, and then the password is PfSense, all lowercase. And here it's gonna say, hey, it's a new install, let's do the setup, but we're gonna go ahead and skip that. So go ahead and click the logo in the upper left. Maybe. To load for anyone.
Seems like if you use like the drop down stuff, it works. I don't know if the dashboard's broken. Maybe. It could be. I can't hit the dress. It's like one of the
I just updated it all the way. Okay. So the dashboard isn't wanting to work. But this is basically what you'd see, basic system information. Here's your interfaces and all the IPs of it. So first off, we're gonna want to change our admin password. Always change it from default, keep red team out, stay secure. Typical DefSec stuff. So to do that, we'll go system, user manager. And on admin, we'll go ahead and click the little edit button. Oh, too far. And on password, go and type whatever password you want. And then save. So at a high level, network firewalls allow block access to IPs, networks, ports, etc. And can also act as a router between your networks. That's kind of what ours is going to do. It's the same idea as the host-based one, so IP tables and Windows Firewall that we did earlier this year, but on the network level instead. So we're going to configure some firewall rules. And to make it a little bit easier, we'll rename the PfSense interfaces to match what our diagram and goals have. So we're going to go to interfaces and then just click on, so LAN for the first one is going to be internal. And note here you can also change the IP address and whatnot from the web GUI as well. And then make sure you apply the changes. Same for opt1 is going to be external one. And opt2 will be external too. So now we're going to start some firewall rules. With the end goal, we're going to allow internal HTTP site from external 2, allow internal web server to talk to external 1 web server, and block everything else in and out on all the interfaces. So first off, we're going to just make all the block all inbound, block all outbound rules on all the interfaces. So if you go firewall rules, up here, make sure you choose your correct interface. So we'll work with internal first, and we'll go ahead and delete the pre-existing allow all rules. And then add a new one. So for action, we're going to want to block it on internal, running any protocol from any to any. And as a description, we can just put block all. Actually, sorry, source, we're going to want to select the internal network. So it's going to be block all outbound. And then we'll do the same block any destination for the internal network. So block all inbound. And then we'll go and do the same on the external ones as well. And then apply changes when you're done. So now none of our systems can communicate outside of the little segment that they're attached to. So these can still talk because they're on the same, and these can, but they can't talk across. Any questions on why we did that basic firewall? Okay. So the next part, we're gonna allow internal HTTP site from the external 2. So we're going to go to external 2, which is our source because we're coming from it. Add a new rule to the top. We're going to allow protocol ports 80 or protocol TCP because HTTP is port 80 and it runs on TCP. Source from our external 2 network. Destination to a specific address of 192.168.0.2, which is a web server on internal on HTTP, so port 80. And then description, allow internal web from external 2. Save and apply. So now if we open up external 2 Win10. Maybe. Should be able to open up Firefox and go to 192.168.0.2, and we're on the internal web server. Any questions on that rule? Perfect. So now we're going to allow the internal web server to talk to the external 1 web server on all ports. So internal, go to add another rule at the top. So pass anything from specific address 192.168.0.2 to a specific address of 10.0.0.2. So allow all internal on save and apply changes. So now if we open up the internal web, which is the same. Open up Firefox. And go 10.0.0.2. It'll pull up external 1 web server. And if we open up terminal, we'll be able to ping it as well. Because instead of just TCP, we chose any, which ICMP is included in that any. Any questions on firewall rules? Okay. So network address translation, or NATs, are how you get internet at home pretty much. So there's 4 types in PfSense: port forward, one-to-one, outbound, and NPT for IPv6. And so you'll probably end up using either port forward or one-to-one. So for how you get internet at home, here at home you have one public IP address. So let's say this 210.26.97. And inside you have the 192.168.1 network, the same as your neighbor and then the other neighbor down the street. You guys all have the same internal IP addresses, but because everything's coming from a different external IP address, your router at home translate what's coming inbound by the port number and directs it to the right client on your internal network. So that's kind of, I would say, along the lines of a port forward. So that's saying port 123 on 1234 points to port 22 on 192.168.0.2. It takes what it comes in as and completely redirects it to either a different IP, different port, or both. A one-to-one binds an internal address to an external address. So if you had multiple public IP addresses, you could bind this laptop on 192.168.1.2 to 210.26.100, and this one could be 1.3 on .101. Does that make sense? So we're going to do a port forward NAT with the end goal to redirect port 54321 on external one's address. So it's routers, or the firewall's IP address on external one, to 192.168.0.3, port 22 on external one. So we're going to go back to our Windows 10. Firewall and NAT. So port forward, add it. Interface, we're going to go external one. And it automatically put here the external one address. So that address is going to be the 10.0.0.1. Destination port 54321. This is going to be what the communication is going to come in as. And then we're going to redirect it to 192.168.0.3 on SSH, which is going to be our internal SSH server. So forward external one SSH, and then click save and apply your changes. So now if we go to the external one client, and open up PuTTY. We can type 10.0.0.1, port 54321. Hopefully it works. Did yours work? Yours work? Well, apparently mine's not very happy. But other people in here said it works, so that will run. It SSHs you to the internal SSH server so you can log on with DSU and password 1 bang. And then if you run IP space ADDR, it should show your internal IP address. Yay, live demos. For a one-to-one NAT, we're gonna redirect all traffic on 888.3 to 192.168.0.3 on external 1. So this is gonna be a kind of 3-step process. We're gonna need to create the virtual IP of 888.3 so our router knows that firewall knows that it owns it. I'm gonna do the one-to-one NAT and then create a firewall rule on external 1 to allow traffic outbound. So to create the virtual IP, I don't know why it keeps doing that. Go to firewall and then virtual IPs. Add a new address as a IP alias. And our interface is external 1. So switch that. Address of 8883. And then just save and apply. So now our router knows that it owns 8883 on the external 1 interface. So next we'll go and do the one-to-one NAT. So under firewall NAT, one-to-one here, and add a new one. So our interface is going to be external 1. Our external subnet IP is our 8883 with an internal IP address of 192.168.0.3. And destination, that stays as any. And save, apply. So now we have to add the firewall rule on external 1 to just allow anything going out of it. So firewall rules, external 1. We're going to allow anything from external 1 address or external 1 network to 192.168.0.3. So now if we open up the external 1, Win10 again. Eight, 3. Say yes. DSU. Password 1 bang. and then IP adder, we can see that we're on 192.168.0.3. So we're on the internal address. If this was also running a web server or website, you could go to 8883 in your browser and it would pull up that website on that device. So no matter what port it is, it's completely binded to that next machine. PfSense does some logging with it as well. By default, it does the block connections. You can also choose to have the allowed connections if you check the checkbox at the bottom of your firewall rule. So really quick, that's under status, system logs. We're dealing with firewall, so here's all my blocked stuff. I don't have the allowed stuff, but you would also see that. So is there any questions over PfSense at all before we move on to lab? Okay. So some lab exercises. Try and allow port 9632 on external 2's address to open the internal website. So that's going to be a port forward NAT. Allow pinging 172.0.0.10 on external 2 Win10 to ping the internal web server successfully, and if you go to that IP address, it should open up the internal website. So it's going to be a 1-to-1 NAT, and then allow internal Win10 to ping external 2 Win10 as a firewall rule. Keep in mind you also have to configure the local firewall rule on the external 2 Win10 client as well to allow echo requests. If you have any questions, raise your hand. Those of us can walk around who've done PfSense. And this is all we had tonight, right, Nick? This is all we had tonight?
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So if you guys, once you finish this, you can go, or if you don't want to do it, you can go too.